do 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 do. What is going on, everybody? Welcome in Marine Layer Podcast Sunday Night Live. Let's get Lyle on in here. What's up, buddy?
Is everybody in a good mood this weekend? I know I am. Not.
Define good. Let's get a vibe check going. By the way, welcome in everybody. Marine Layer Podcast Sunday Night live here on our YouTube and our Instagram channels every single Sunday night at 7 o'clock Pacific. Be sure to follow us on all of our social media channels at Marine Layer Pod. Send us your questions on both Instagram and YouTube. Want to hear what you guys have to say. If you really want us to answer your question, head on over to the YouTube chat. Send us a super chat, and we'll be sure to get to your question. All right, Lyle, and all right, chat. Here's the question I'm going to lead off to you guys. On a scale of 1 to 10, what's the vibe check like? 10 is they're winning the World Series. 1 is they're never winning another baseball game again. Lyle, go.
4. What about you?
Negative 15. No, I'm kidding.
Oh,
It's probably about a 3 or a 4 right now. Yeah,
oh,
that's about it.
I was gonna say maybe like a 3.5 is a better way. As TJ put it, if you guys haven't watched our afternoon social post today, TJ reacted to the series. Yeah, let's read some of the responses we're getting in here. Yeah, 2, 2, 3, 6.
4.2069. I like that one. 3, 3, 3 to 4, 1. Easy 10 from Ryan. I like the optimism. 4, 7. So it's all over the place. But I think we do kind of narrow it down to somewhere between 3 and 5.
Yeah. So anyway, TJ put in our post on our series reaction this afternoon that the Mariners essentially have to go 27-10 to guarantee themselves a spot in the playoffs. And when I heard TJ say that today, I was like, that seems like a lot. And then you start to think about it. Going 27-10 the rest of the way would be 90 wins. So yeah, that probably is what they're going to have to do the rest of the way. Or if you think the AL West can actually be won with 88 wins, then they have to go like 25-12, which in other words, in English here means the Mariners are going to have to rip off an insane last 6 weeks. And as we sit right now, I don't think you, me, or anybody sitting in this chat, or most of the fan base for that matter, really has much confidence that they're going to do that.
And the rest of the schedule, the next couple of weeks, doesn't even sort of give you the opportunity to go do that. The easy part of the schedule was the last 2 weeks. You had the series you wanted at home. You had 2 series against the 4th place Detroit Tigers, and then a series this weekend against the 5th place Pittsburgh Pirates. And what did you do? Not enough, right? So now coming up, instead, they're going to go to Los Angeles this week. I don't think I'd be shocked. Is there a single person watching on either Instagram, YouTube, or between the two of us who thinks they're going to go into LA and win a series? Not to be an ultra Debbie Downer, I just don't think they're going to win a series down there. That doesn't seem realistic, not based on how they played. And then after that, you get an okay Giants team at home. Then you have the Rays, who already beat you in a series this season. And then you play the Angels, who have beat you the last 6 times you played. Oh, and then you play the A's, who have the second best record in baseball since you were 10 games up.
How is that possible with the A's?
Maybe they actually can build a young core, and then they just trade him away anyways. You know who it's not because of? It's not because of Abe.
Oh, I think it might be.
What's Abe up to now?
All right.
I'll let you find a question. I'm gonna check in on our guy here.
Abe, I think his WRC plus is still under 100. I was just giving you a hard time.
Oh, really? Really? No. Not Abe.
Let's see.
No. No, it's 85? No!
He's a Mariner this offseason.
Yeah, based on how things are going, yeah, he is.
Yeah. All right. Well, Mighty Apricot just said on Instagram, how are we feeling after today? Again, so maybe you hopped in a couple minutes late, but we just had everybody put in their numbers in the chat on a scale of 1 to 10, where your confidence level's at and where the vibes are at. We said 3 to 4, and that's about what everybody else says too. So I think that answers that one. What else do we have? Spencer Packard is the only one who can save us. Well, I like the enthusiasm. Somebody's a Spencer Packard fan in here. I don't think that's happening. They got a pretty crowded outfield. So like, yeah.
And no offense to Spencer, I don't see it. Not saving the season.
Yeah.
So I would be pleasantly surprised if that was the case. But hey, if he wants to do it, if Spencer Packard wants to come and save the Mariners season, I'm okay building him a statue. They got plenty of space outside the stadium.
Tanner says on YouTube, do you think we need to go 28-9? Is it possible? Again, they have to probably go right about that range. And is it possible? My doubts are extremely high.
28-9. The way I was putting it, I put it on a reaction. Like, you just think it's like the magic number is essentially 10, right? Every time you lose a game from here on out, you count to 10. If you go past 10, you're probably done. But by the time they get through that A's series, Lyle, they could have those 10 losses. Unfortunately, based on the way they played, based on the way they've hit, it could be 10 losses by the time they get to the first week of September, which sucks. That's how soon it could come. That's just telling you how little margin of error they have. Like, really.
Yeah, it's true. This is what happens when you play bad baseball, when you go 1-5 against the Tigers and nearly 0-6, if not for an atrocious play in right field by Ryan Valade. And then you get embarrassed in 2 games against the Pirates. You score 3 runs in 3 games against the Angels. Again, like their record now against sub 500 teams, excluding the White Sox, since the middle of June is 6-20. That's not what playoff teams do. It just isn't.
And that defeats the whole purpose now. If someone wants to come along and bring up the what's the website? Oh, I forget about it. The Tankathon, right? That brings up all the records from the rest of the season. And it's like, oh, look how easy the Mariners' schedule is. Well, it doesn't matter. Literally does not matter. None of that matters. Because the Mariners have showed, even if you are presented with the opportunity, if you play bad baseball, you go 6-20. And especially, Lyle, in a year that this is, that there's a lot of parity in Major League Baseball. There's not runaway dominant teams at all. Not like the Phillies. Who's the best team in baseball? Could you name who the best team in baseball is? Like slam dunk. Is it the Phillies? Is it the Dodgers? Is it the Yankees? Is it the Orioles?
I'd say it's the Orioles.
But could you get 100 people to agree on that in a row? Probably not, right?
No, you couldn't, because the Orioles have Corbin Burns and they have G-Rod, but their starting rotation depth is not insane. They're gonna lean heavily on their young offense in the postseason.
And they also had a tough stretch out of the All-Star break. So it's obviously not just the Mariners. The Yankees were back in first place in that division this month. So,
right.
Like that just tells you all you need to know about the parity. And that shows that even though some of these teams are a little bit below 500, the gap in talent really isn't that much.
No.
It's enough. It should be enough for you to win the series, but not enough for the Mariners to just show up to a ballpark and expect to win 2 of 3, because that obviously didn't happen.
All the more reason
they had a slam dunk pitching advantage throughout the last 9 games against the Pirates and Tigers. Did not matter.
All the more reason it's that much more maddening that the Mariners are doing what they're doing, because in a year that, like there is no far and away team that's just overpowering everybody else here in 2024. So if the Mariners were to just get in, like we've talked about all season, they could do real damage because of their rotation. Unfortunately, for the second year in a row, they might waste another elite pitching staff, and it is maddening to think about. Absolutely maddening.
So let's get to a question here on YouTube. Yuri wants to know, why didn't Randy play left field today? Any rumors or announcements on that? I'm guessing he just got a day off because he had struck out in 7 of his last 9 plate appearances, and they thought he could use a day. He was probably pressing a little bit. The fact that he struck out 3 times against Bailey Falter, of all people, on Saturday told you everything you needed to know, I think, about where Randy was at the plate and how he could have used a day off. Bailey Falter, in case you missed it, Mariners struck out 14 more times on Saturday, just as in totality. But Falter, I think, had 8, which tied his career high, and he came into the game averaging a little bit over 5 strikeouts per 9 innings. And he had 8 in his 6 innings against the Mariner lineup. So it was contagious, but Randy was the one who looked by far the worst. And he had some bad strikeouts and bad spots, too. So I think the Mariners decided it was time to give him a day off.
Daniel Kramer tweeted this out. Here, I can pull up the tweet to get it exactly right. But of all qualified pitchers here this year in Major League Baseball, there are only there is only one pitcher who has a lower K per nine, I believe, or strikeout rate than Bailey Falter. Bailey Falter, out of 100 qualified pitchers, has the second lowest strikeout rate in all of baseball, and he just overpowered the Mariners. Yeah, here, if you want me to find the exact tweet about Falter and the Mariners, it was yeah, here we go. So this is from Daniel Kramer. The Mariners struck out 8 times today against Bailey Falter, who ties a season high, but will depart with 2 outs here in the 6th inning. Falter entered play with a 16.2 strikeout rate that ranked the second lowest in Major League Baseball among 99 pitchers with at least 100 innings. Unreal stuff. It really is. A guy who doesn't strike anybody out struck out 8 guys in less than 6 innings. Incredible. And he made Randy look kind of silly up there.
Do you want to know a fun fact? I won't claim that I looked this up first because I did see someone else look it up first. But would the chat like to guess what Justin Turner's strikeout rate is since becoming a Mariner?
Go right ahead.
Note that he came to Seattle with a strikeout rate well below league average. I think it was 18%. His strikeout rate with the Mariners is 28%. 28.
All right. So on that note, do we want to fire off the big guns here in terms of a question? Because we've got one from Lane on Instagram, and it says, "Is Scott Service's job in jeopardy if not making the playoffs? And if so, who takes over?"
So I don't know who takes over because I don't know who's making the decision to replace Scott because I think the rest of that would also be up in the air in terms of would the front office be going as well? Because Lau and I have agreed now for weeks that somebody is losing their job. It's either Jerry, Scott, or both of them are losing their job if the Mariners miss the playoffs because given where they are in their build, given where the expectations of the season, it just seems it would be I think it would be very unlikely that neither of them sees any loss of employment over missing the playoffs this season. I'm going to say Scott is the most likely. But in terms of who replaces him, I would need to know who is making that decision. I would think personally, if it's me, if Scott goes, I would want fresh eyes. I would want someone outside of this system taking over of that, meaning not somebody on Scott's coaching staff, current coaching staff. Is that fair? Because based on what we've seen, there's been a lot of continuity with this staff. A lot of these guys currently on the staff have been with this organization up through the minors with a lot of these players. If you really want that breath of fresh air from a leadership and managerial position, I feel like you need to do it right. Meaning you need to get someone from outside of that system who has their own way of going about things, not someone who came up under Scott and learned essentially through the same system. That's how I think about this.
Yeah, so we were talking to our friend a couple weeks ago whose name is Ben Ranieri, who does a bunch of Mariners content too. He said something similar to what a couple people have put in this chat, and he said Christopher Negron, I think, would be a great major league manager. Maybe that's true, but it does feel like if they're going to move on, they probably need to just get a really fresh start because otherwise, I don't really know what changes. Because to your point, most of the coaching staff is on the same wavelength here, and they're on the same wavelength as most of the front office. So if you saw Negron be the manager, he'd probably do things pretty similar to how Scott Service has done it. Now, that may not necessarily be right or wrong. That doesn't change the fact that Christopher Negron may be a very good candidate to be a good big league manager in the future, but the Mariners just may need something fresh. So I don't know exactly what's going to happen in terms of a replacement. In terms of will Scott Service be here next year? Look, number one, we still don't know what the story is with him and Jerry's contracts. We know they're up at the end of this year, and we haven't heard anything about renewals yet. And number two, I think it's fairly black and white at this point. I think if they don't make the playoffs, there's probably a change coming. I think it's that simple.
Yep. Yep. So Gmo has an idea. Not to this isn't a total subject change, but this is related to poor play. Gmo underscore 44 says, guys, I know why the Mariners struggled in Pittsburgh. Ready? It's because Russ was cooking for the Steelers. He clearly burned the bacon, and the Mariners could not recover in time for the morning game. Wah, wah, wah. Speaking of guys who also had a poor showing for Pittsburgh this weekend, he was one of them.
Oh, dude, he looked terrible. I
Yeah,
like he might lose the starting job to Justin Fields, and if he loses the starting job, I don't think he's ever starting in the NFL again.
probably not. I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Sometimes
not good vibes in Pittsburgh for current and former Seattle athletes.
no. You know, Russ, sometimes you don't know how good you have it till it's gone. Sad.
Let's see some other things. Back to the managerial thing. So Bridget asks the question here: Service will be the fall guy, but I'm going to frame this as a question. Is he the? I don't know. Is he a? I'm going to frame this differently than Bridget frames it. Is it? Is he being scapegoated if he gets fired?
Probably a little. I'm not going to sit here and tell you Scott Service is perfect, but a little bit. I mean, I think everybody's a scapegoat for ownership at this point. Like people who lose their job. Look, I mean, I don't want to sit here and say everybody's been perfect. It's not. Like we like Jerry Dipoto a lot. We think he's a good GM, but he's like not all his trades have been perfect by any stretch, especially when it comes to some of the offensive players he's gone and acquired over the last few years. He's not perfect, but they have to operate in a certain way because they are on certain restraints from payroll budgets that they're given by the people upstairs, by the ownership group. And when you're given such a small budget this offseason, you only have so little to work with. And like, and people are going to say, well, the players they went out and got, they spent a little bit of money on and it didn't work out, but you can't spend every penny you have on one star. And then you run out AAA players the whole year at other positions. So they had to go and try and fill every spot the best they could with essentially no payroll budget. And they tried, but when you have to bargain shop, it doesn't all work. So anyway, I'm going down a rabbit hole here. Is Scott would Scott be a scapegoat if he's fired? Partially, but it would partially be that there may be somebody out there that could do it a little bit better.
So I do think there would be a little. It would. I'm with you that he would be a little bit of a scapegoat, but I really don't. And friend of our podcast, Ty Dan Gonzalez, host of the Locked On Mariners podcast, wrote a really nice long tweet the other day. I think it was yesterday after they lost on Saturday. Sort of just outlining I'd say the responsibilities of blame and what happens if you do this, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not going to rehash the whole thing because you should go read what Ty wrote. But ultimately, Lyle, I mean, I would just like sort of section it off. There are blames on all levels, and so like first of all, not spending enough, that falls on ownership. Not having enough budget to feel like what you want to do. However, then you get to the general manager, president of baseball operations level, where we see teams across the league have better rosters than the Mariners with less money. It is possible. It's not easy, but it is certainly possible to do that. And I'd say the success rate on landing some players and having players play well in your organization has been a lot better. Like the Orioles, the Brewers, etc., the Twins, who are cutting payroll this offseason and are still a very, very good baseball team. Examples like that. And Jerry Dipoto, I will say, has come out and taken responsibility for whiffing on the offseason. I mean, he went on 710 about a month ago before the trade deadline and said, I messed up. These were not good. These did not work. So we have to go remedy those at the trade deadline. So he's accepted, I think, responsibility on that. That doesn't free him of blame when push comes to shove and you have to make decisions on the future of your organization. But there's the section of blame that falls on him. And then there's the whole argument that's come up the last 2 weeks where you and I have talked more about the energy of this baseball team than we ever have. And whose fault is that? That's the guys in the dugout supposed to be in charge of the players and getting guys ready to play on a given day and getting motivation and building a good clubhouse culture and all that. So you can throw blame on every level. Unfortunately, I mean, I think the manager out of this whole pie, if we're pie charting the blame, has the smallest amount, but he's the easiest to fire. Definitely the easiest. So the fewest positions you have to replace. So that's probably what it would end up being. It's what it is.
And I hate to do this, but this is reality. The guys that are penciled into the lineup every night are gonna be the ones who cost Scott Service's job. Because if they were hitting, he wouldn't be potentially out of a job at the end of the season. Not the rotation, we know that. The bullpen hasn't been perfect, but it comes back to the 9 guys a night and the 13 guys on the roster that are responsible for picking up a bat and coming up with hits. It's those guys that are gonna essentially be responsible for this potentially lost season, and it's those guys that are gonna be responsible for potentially a new coaching staff in town,
Yep.
because that has been the weak link of this team all year. It's not even close. We all know it, and that's what's going to warrant changes this offseason. Again, we know it's not the rotation, but yes, I think you're right. Manager probably has the least amount of blame. Everybody across the organization deserves some blame. However, if it's up to me, I'm still pinning most of it on ownership.
Right. As it comes and goes with most sports because they are the owners' teams. It's their team. Everything under them is their responsibility. So when it comes to like when push comes to shove, you have a manager who you don't think is good enough. Well, who hired him in the first place? And what's that structure to get him into the organization? Well, it's the ownership. So Derek sent us a super chat, and he's more along the lines of what we're saying. Blaming the manager seems largely like a scapegoat for a weak ass ownership group unless they get a big time replacement. Agree. So thank you for that, Derek. That is correct. However, here's my thing now with managers. I feel like as the manager and front office have seen more and more intertwined in the current state of baseball, for like in the example of Scott and Jerry essentially operating as one. Like the front office doesn't make the lineup, but they spend a lot of time talking to each other about these sorts of things every single game. So I just don't know if managers have a big time replacement aura anymore. Do they? Like who was the last like slam dunk man had to have that manager in here. He's instantly turning everything around and we're winning every single thing possible.
Craig Counsell had a little bit of that aura this offseason, but somebody like that's not coming through the door this winter.
No.
I don't
Because to
know.
get someone like that, you'd have to drastically overpay, which of course this franchise does not do.
No,
That's how he became the Cubs manager.
right. So I don't know who's even out there in terms of a potential replacement like that. Now there are certain people like that in the front office world because everybody's going to point to Theo Epstein. Well, I don't think Theo Epstein's going to be president of baseball ops again. I think Theo Epstein's next role, and we can see if this happens or not. I think Theo Epstein's next role is he may be the commissioner when Rob Manfred's tenure is up after 2027, I believe. Yeah, that's when it ends.
Mm-hmm.
I think 27. So same thing with the front office where you're not having a Theo Epstein walk through the door. You're not having a Craig Counsell walk through the door in terms of a manager. And who's out there? Somebody said, somebody says Joe Madden to the Cubs. But yeah, okay, Joe Madden's an example. I don't think Joe Madden has it anymore. He wasn't any good with the Angels. He was great in Tampa. He was great in Chicago. That was almost a decade ago now when he was really an elite manager. I don't think Joe Madden's some amazing solution for this. Who else you want? Don't even get us started on Tony La Russa, although I don't think anybody here is going to sit and talk about that.
I don't think he's getting hired again. I think him falling asleep in the dugout was probably if the White Sox don't want you to come back, then I think that says everything.
Yeah. So point being, there's not a guy like that out there. There's just not.
No. And again, to come back to the point again, to get a good manager, you have to pay a lot of money for a manager. We don't. Scott Service's managerial salary is not publicly available. I don't think, and most manager salaries aren't. But to get a like top of the line one, you do need to pay top of the line price. I don't think the Mariners would be willing to pay for that.
No, and it's funny. Divish was on, let's say it was Jason Puckett's podcast, who we've had on our pod too, a couple weeks ago. And Divish was talking about, this got tweeted out somewhere, this clip, talking about how the Mariners kind of lowball their coaches and have for a long time. And he said, I believe like somebody high up in the organization, not in this regime, but in the last regime, used to talk about like the reason they lowball coaches is because they said, well, your privilege is working in baseball, period. You should be thankful, basically. And therefore, They don't overpay coaches. They, in fact, kinda lowball them. At least they
Mhm.
they did for a long time. So, yeah, I don't think the Mariners are paying $8 million a year for Craig Counsell or whatever it is. His contract is public, because I think when that came out, they talked about the AAV for Counsell, and it was pretty high.
Yeah, because they like drastically overpaid what the Brewers were paying him. That's how they got him.
Right, right. So there's not somebody like that. Somebody mentioned Joe Girardi, maybe, but, he got
But
fired in Philly.
he got fired, and then his team went to the World Series.
Right.
Like that's a pretty tough indictment. And he was fired not once but twice in the last decade. Yankees fired him. They didn't want
Yeah,
him.
exactly.
He
So I
went
don't
to
know.
the ALCS 3 years in a row. Well, 3 or 2. What year did he get fired? Was it 18
What
or 19?
did Boone not take over in the COVID season, or was it before that?
I thought it was. I thought Boone took over in 19. Oh,
Maybe.
regardless, it was like they made the championship series. So they made the championship series in 17, 19. Anyways, they were good. They had a really good team, and Girardi led them very close to the World Series, and they still fired him. Right?
Mhm.
Like that says pretty much what you need to hear about how he managed in the current day.
Right. And then who else is there? Again, it just doesn't exist, people. Are you gonna like, there might be other managers out there that you really like in terms of other guys across baseball, but again, that would involve the Mariners doing what the Cubs had to do and overpaying to get somebody out of their contract and away from their old team, which just we don't see them do. Like, are they gonna take Bruce Bochy away from Texas? I don't think so. That would involve a drastic overpay. I know this one might ruffle some feathers, but genuinely, I do think he's a very good manager. However, it's still not gonna happen. Are you gonna overpay Detroit to take AJ Hinch away to be your manager? I don't think so. And I think AJ Hinch is a really good manager. You can get into the trash can stuff all you want. I think AJ Hinch is a very, very good manager. But are the Mariners overpaying him to get him away from Detroit? No, they're not.
Nope.
So it's just not out there. So
Yeah.
there's not some big prize that you're gonna get out in the coaching free agency.
People saying Don Mattingly.
He was awful as a manager in Miami.
Yeah.
I'm telling you,
But
people, it doesn't exist.
AJ Przinsky, like, do you want to, as smart and as much baseball as AJ knows, that would be a first time skipper. He did say he wanted to be the manager of the White Sox when that job was open. Well, actually, no, it's open right now because they fired Grifol, so he might get hired there. Would you want to take a risk of a first time manager? No coaching experience?
Not entirely.
Something the Mariners might have, if the Mariners really want to try and that would be their big swing. They'd just risk and see if someone who's never managed before is actually great at it.
Right. And that's what Scott Service was when he got hired. He'd never managed before.
Right.
But if you want to go down that route, somebody threw out Buster Posey. Okay, if you're gonna take a swing like that, and you looked at somebody like him, you looked at somebody like Yadier Molina, who people talked about forever, they thought would be a great manager. Like, cool, that might get some people fired up, but it's a total risk. There is no slam dunk hire. I think that's what we're getting at here.
Mm-hmm. And you could say this GMs, I think, are a little bit different, but you and I don't think Jerry's getting fired. So
Nor do I think he should be. And I know not everybody agrees with that. You don't have to agree with it. I just think that I don't think he's perfect, but I think you have a pretty good thing going in terms of where this organization is headed, in terms of they are not going back to the dog days of the 2005 to 2013 Mariners, where they were just totally, totally incompetent at every single level. They couldn't draft, they couldn't develop, they couldn't sign free agents for the most part. They signed Beltre and Sexton that one year, but like aside from that, like they didn't make any big splashes, and you didn't go and make good trades. You traded Adam freaking Jones. Like, I ain't going back to those days. I'm sorry. So
it's a
it's
good point.
yeah. As Churchill said at the start of the year, people are not gonna like to hear it, but Jason Churchill said to us, Jerry Dipoto may very, very well be the best general manager the Mariners have ever had. He even said possibly ahead of Pat Gillick, because Gillick didn't have to deal with everything Jerry's had to deal with, and he didn't have to totally replenish the organization the way Jerry did. So look, if they make that decision to let him go, I understand. I'm not gonna be like totally up in arms. I'm not going to be thrilled, but I'm not going to be up in arms at this point. I just don't think it's the sound decision.
Now, are you getting a kick out of the people leaving most Mariners media members as coaches replacements?
Oh, these have
You
been
seeing
good.
that? I've seen the whole Root Sports crew named in the Instagram chat, which is great. Brad Adam as a bench coach. I think Brad would be a great bench coach. He can get people fired up. You could do Salk as the manager, right?
Okay.
Ricardo suggests that in the YouTube chat.
Sure.
You think he'd be in? You should float him that idea tomorrow. See what do you think?
Imagine Salk getting into it with an umpire. He'd probably let off some steam.
He'd yell at him pretty good. He's got a little bit of kick in him.
Yeah. What are we? Do we get any role?
Well, someone said, yeah, you guys should coach. I don't. What kind of coach do you think you would be? You think you'd be a base coach? Do you think you'd be a? Yeah, I don't know what kind of coach I'd be. I don't know if I'd be a good mental skills coach. That doesn't require any baseball coaching. You definitely shouldn't hire me as the hitting coach because people are going to want me canned in like a month. Judging that, I was never a great hitter. It's probably not good. And I shouldn't be a pitching coach either.
Pitching coach? Yeah, I don't think so.
You?
No. You were saying you could be a pitching coach? Yeah, I don't think.
Oh, I could not.
Yeah.
No. What would I? Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what I'd be. Maybe I could be. Could I be like a? Dude, I don't even know. Like,
I'm the clubhouse chef, says Gmo. You're the first base coach, Lyle, and I'm the clubhouse chef.
I mean, I can be the first base coach. You essentially don't have to. I mean, okay, let me say this the right way because Negron's the first base coach. Usually when you're a first or third base coach, you have other roles and responsibilities on the roster. AKA Manny Acta and Christopher Negron do a lot in terms of their role as coaches. They just also coach the bases. Now, if you were to say, Lyle, you have 0% other responsibilities on the team rather than to stand in the first base coach's box and coach first base. All right, I could do that because I mean, how much can you really get wrong?
I'd be in for the game planning part. I feel like I'd do okay with that.
Oh, that's actually a good one. Yeah, I like that.
I feel like I could game plan. I don't, again, like the technicalities of hitting and pitching, probably not. But if we're staring at a screen and we're looking at like usages and strategy, that I feel like I could do because that's essentially what we do.
Right.
We're just geeks looking at Baseball Savant all the time and heat maps and stuff plus. Not that much different.
Yeah, all right, that's a decent one. We could help out with that. We could do that. Maybe yeah, that's about it. I don't know what else we could do. Other than I mean, you make some of your own meals. You can be a chef in the clubhouse.
Dude, I can't cook some of these things they're asking. Like Gmo's asking me to cook smoked salmon. Dude, I don't even eat salmon. That stuff smells. No, thank you. I don't eat cooked fish. It smells nasty. So no, Gmo, there will be no smoked salmon in my clubhouse. That's not happening. Not cooking it. I can't be like gagging in the kitchen. That sounds disgusting.
Oh, so my friend Noah, who's in the comments, says, "Have you seen the movie Invincible? It's with Mark Wahlberg. It's based on a true story, but it's a Disney movie, I think.
Maybe.
So it's about a character named Vince Papale, who was a special teams player for the Eagles, who essentially won his way onto the roster or earned his way onto the roster because he showed up at an open tryout and thrived. Noah says the Mariners need to do an Invincible and have open tryouts. Could you imagine the discourse around the media and online paired with what that absolute ruckus would look like if they had open tryouts for people to try out for the Mariners? I'll tell you what.
Who's running those tryouts? Do you think Scott Service is going to sit there and evaluate all these just normal people like kicking the ball around his infield?
And there's a scene in the movie Invincible with this just ridiculous looking guy, like probably 5'7", massive beer belly, wearing a ridiculous Eagles outfit. And obviously there's all this media that in the movie for the open tryout, and they're asking him like, what brings you out here today? And this dude's like, I want to be an Eagle, baby. And it's like, fight, Eagles, fight, and he's just going off, and obviously later on in the movie, it's like, this is one of many guys who did not make the team or whatever. It's like, could you imagine the type of people that would show up at this thing for the Mariners? I'll tell you what, you think the two of us aren't doing a vlog out of that? Oh, we are.
Yeah.
We're showing up.
Yeah. Well, I can't promise I'd hit the ball very far, but we'll see.
You think we're not making a vlog out of that? We are.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Just could you imagine the current Mariners coaching staff standing out there on the field and evaluating these people?
All the more reason it would be hilarious. We need it. That would be that'd be so fun. I would show up for an open tryout in a heartbeat. What else do we have?
Oh God, that would be funny. Oh.
This has been fun. I went into this live stream being in just an atrocious mood, but all this talk about an open tryout and Mariners media trying to coach the team, man, it's
Bridget on YouTube says open tryouts for the new skipper. How would you go about doing that?
yeah, I don't know.
Do you want someone from Mariners Twitter managing this team? Ask yourself that question. Do you want that?
You know, I could throw out a couple names, but I'm not going to because even as a joke, because it's people I do not want to give a second of airtime to. So, yeah. But it would be funny. I would get a laugh out of it.
Well, what would the first move do you think they would make? Said unnamed person.
Oh, dude, they'd trade the whole team.
Well, they definitely fire the GM. They turn up, look upstairs, and say, "You're fired."
Yeah, as if they have the power to do that. They don't. It would. Let me tell you what. It would look a lot like if Jerry's still there. It would look a lot like allegedly what Jerry and Mike Scioscia's relationship looked like toward the end of his time in Anaheim. That's what it would look like. See, this has been fun.
We're getting a lot of really good suggestions. Someone's suggesting Colby from Locked On, Colby Patnode, to be on the coaching staff. I think Colby would like that. Seems like
Colby's a pretty smart guy.
Yeah.
But I was gonna say, like, now could he
So here's the question: does Colby like managing people?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know.
Yeah.
We know Ty. We know Ty better than we know Colby. So I could speak more to Ty's thing. I mean, obviously we see those guys' stuff just like we see everybody's stuff and watch everybody's stuff in the Mariners content community. Like I said, he's smart. Maybe he'd be another game planner too, like strategist rather than a manager.
Mm-hmm.
So
we can let Ty manage.
Ty's got a pretty level head. I feel like he can do it. I feel like most of the people in the Mariners content community, probably us included, don't have the level-headedness to be a manager. I'll tell you what. What you think? Oh, you've got something to read. Okay, I'll let you do it in a minute.
I'm laughing. John suggests Kyle Seager comes back and coaches. Yeah, I'm gonna just say, John, I think that would be last on Kyle Seager's to-do list in retirement.
Let me say this, especially if DePoto's still there. Has everybody in this chat seen Step Brothers, aka one of the first scenes in the movie where Will Ferrell walks out of the car, stands across like parallel to John C. Reilly, and they're just staring at each other with like the dramatic music playing? It's like, I'm Brennan. I'm Dale. But you have to call me Dragon. You have to call me Nighthawk. That's what Kyle Seager and Jerry DePoto would look like. Or the scene of the two of them trying to both go to sleep. It's like, I just want you to know I hate you. That's what Kyle Seager would be saying to Jerry or whatever. It's like, yeah, that would not go well.
No, I agree. I don't think that would go well at all.
Hang on. I did want to say though, in terms of most people in the Mariners content community probably aren't level-headed enough to be a manager. Yeah, I think the two of us will qualify. I think most people in the content community would qualify. I'll tell you this, I would be getting fine after fine after fine. There would be checks that would not even be getting cleared. They'd just go right to the league because every game I'd be ripping umpires and throwing them under the bus by name. Like if there's bad nights, somebody needs, as we say on this podcast all the time, these people need to be held accountable, and it's gonna be us. So I can promise the Mariners fans this: you will not lack content with the Marine Layer Pod on the Mariners coaching staff.
No, 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 not at all. Ryan says on YouTube that if Russell Wilson does not win the Pittsburgh Steelers job, then you should hire him as a coach on the Mariners staff.
Puh. Yeah, like I'd let that guy anywhere near the Mariners.
Here's the problem, though. The ego wouldn't allow him to just be a bench coach.
No. No, he'd think he's running the show. Why? Hence why I'd probably never let him anywhere near the coaching staff. I'm going to make another sports movie reference here. Actually, the last one wasn't sports, it was Step Brothers, but I'm going to make another movie reference here. Not Major League, but Major League 2. When Roger Dorn somehow ends up buying the team, gets demoted to general manager when the old owner buys it back, and then he goes down to the dugout and tells Lou Brown, the manager and the team, I just want you guys to know, as of today, I've activated myself. That's how that would go. That's how it would go with Russ. He'd start as a bench coach and be like, I play minor league baseball. This team needs a boost in offense. And you know what? I'm suiting up today.
So Colin leaves us a good suggestion on YouTube because this is good because Ben actually is a head coach of a baseball team. So Colin says, Ben Ranieri seems fairly calm, referencing the content community. I think Ben Ranieri actually should be the manager since he already is a baseball manager.
Yeah, he coaches high school baseball and all that stuff. And so he has a coaching background. He played in college. Yeah, I would say in the content community, Ben and Ty are probably the most level-headed. I would say those two would probably do the best job. And again, any chance I got if I was on that coaching staff, I'd be ripping umpires all the time by name, like chart the missed calls, tell them exactly where it was wrong. You know how I've said on our podcast before that if I was a manager, I would be running out. If you know you're going to get ejected anyway, I'd be running out to the home plate umpire with the iPad to argue, to physically show them that they got the call wrong. I'd be doing that all the time. I get thrown out of games, show them the iPad, then in post-game pressers, just start ripping them apart. But yeah, I don't think Ben and Ty would quite do that.
Wrong, wrong, wrong. Here's the
Oh,
15 calls you missed, Blue.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, let's pick one more.
Okay. This has been fun. Instead of having it be terrible vibes talking about the last week of baseball, we've actually made this into a very, very fun live stream where we're just throwing out these hilarious hypotheticals.
Well, I think we've answered like maybe 2 real Mariners questions this entire 40 minutes, which has been great.
Oh, Noah, my friend Noah says Kent Murphy. Oh, that'd be hilarious.
So Noah also says, I think he's probably full of crap here, and you let me know, Lau, because you know him better than I do. Heard Angel Hernandez is umpiring the Little League World Series game. Poor kids. Is that true? That can't be true.
I don't think so.
Okay, good. That's good. Good for the kids.
What else? What else do we have? Let's see.
Well, Lau looks to that last question. Again, a reminder to all you guys in here, thank you so much for watching Marine Lair Podcast Sunday Night Live every single Sunday night at 7 o'clock Pacific. If you're not already, if you're watching on Instagram and not subbed to our YouTube channel, head on over to our YouTube channel. Make sure you hit subscribe, turn on the notification bell, vice versa as well. If you're watching on YouTube, not following us on Instagram, head on over to our Instagram, hit follow. We appreciate every single one of you. You can find us all over our social media channels at Marine Layer Pod, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and then Marine Layer Podcast on YouTube. Both live streams, short form and long form content. We hope to make you guys entertained, even though this stretch of Mariners baseball hasn't been really all that fantastic. So appreciate any and all of you.
Okay, I think I've got 1.5 more just to finish it up here. So, well, Gmo says, Lyle, I saw you got on 710. Congrats. Can you tell us all where we can hear you? Well, first off, thanks, dude. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's been really fun so far. I talked a little bit about it on Friday. So I'm on Brock and Salk now, Monday through Friday, 6 to 10. I'm one of the co-producers. So am I doing the majority of the talking? No, it's obviously their show, and I'm just there to help out. But it's cool how they run their show because they let the producers do their share of talking, and it's kind of like like the way we've compared it is it's similar to how Dan Patrick and the Le Batard show do it, where those two shows very much get their producers involved. So it's cool being on a show like Rock and Talk. Like, it's fast paced, which I like in a good way, and it gets everybody involved. So I can't promise you always what exact times I'll be on, but if you're tuning in from 6 to 10 on Monday through Friday, that's when I'll be working on the show, and that's when you may hear me on the airwaves. So thanks for asking, and yeah, go check it out. The other question I had is, and this is more the baseball question to wrap it up. This is from Mahal, who runs the account um, Diamond and Deep. He said, "Where are y'all at with Polo's options?" So just to elaborate, in case not everybody knows what that means, Jorge Polanco has about a $10 million option for 2025. It's a team option, so the Mariners can pick it up. They could opt to let him just hit free agency. It's going to be their call. Where are we at with that? I've been talking for a little bit. I'll let you answer first.
Well, at this point, I think they'll pick it up. I think they want some, and shout out to Ty Dane Gonzalez again for sort of laying these points out, and I'm going to follow his lead on what he talked about. But I don't think we can undersell the importance of at least a little bit of continuity at second base, because if the Mariners decide they want another second baseman next year, it'll be 4 years, or essentially like 5 years,
Oh, 5.
6 years in a row. You could throw 2019 in there too and say 6.
Yeah.
19, 20, 1, 2, 3, 4. 6 years, 6 different second basemen. And eventually you want some sort of continuity there. And you don't, like the difference of Jorge Polanco next year, as he already knows how this ballpark plays and he can adjust his hitting style to fit the ballpark a little bit more, as opposed to bringing in some outside guy who doesn't really feel comfortable hitting in this ballpark and is going to take half a season again to get used to. And then we're sitting here on a live stream in June of 2025 saying, DFA, another bust at second base. So instead you can let Polanco, who won't be terrible, he'll be 31 next year. You can let him get some continuity at second base for the Mariners, and it's just one less position you have to worry about in the offseason, especially if you're having to worry about coaching changes, about more route uncertainty, less money to spend. You know what makes you feel more certain is if you already have a position that could be a question mark, and solve it by literally just picking up his option.
Jorge Polanco entering today, Sunday, since July 9th, we use that date all the time, has a 146 WRC plus since July 9th. If he keeps this up, I think you have to pick up his option next year because he seems like he's figured it out. And yeah, there's going to be questions about where this team's at next year in terms of what needs to be added. First base, maybe a spot. Depending on what happens with DH, that may be a spot. Third base, maybe a spot. So if you've already got a lot of areas that you need to upgrade, bullpen, we'll see. They need some security at some of these positions. And yeah, to have one more piece of security for a guy that's not going to be that expensive, I would pick Polanco's option up. And I would bet on the fact of who he's been throughout most of his career and the fact he's had a pretty good second half as opposed to what he did for 3 months here in one of his seasons in 2024.
I agree with that. Let's wrap up with this, Lyle. Terrell just sent us a super chat on YouTube, and he says, here's how we're going to solve who's the Mariners' next manager. Are you ready for this? Mm-hmm. So he says, create a raffle. Then the 10 winners of the raffle play spin the bottle to determine who wins the manager job. And then he adds hashtag World Series on the bottom. So I guess it's that simple. The Mariners need to choose the most random manager possible, and they'll go win the World Series.
Oh, okay. That is a strategy. I don't know if it's a good strategy, but it is a strategy. So
we don't know until we try it.
Yeah. Shout out to you, Terrell. You're getting creative. We preach creativity on here. So shout out to you. Nobody's ever suggested that. Also, if we're going to get to the last super chat donation, your buddy Colby Jack sent another $2 thing in here. He said, bring in TJ's hairstylist. He'll clean it up. Guys, I'll just say, while giving TJ a hard time is always funny, we are just sitting home, like, doing this thing. We're not getting all.
Well, I got a haircut. Do you not notice?
No, I noticed you got a haircut.
Oh, okay. I think that's what he means. Because I got cleaned up. Not the fact my hair's falling in my face.
I see. That makes sense.
It's a compliment, not a diss.
Okay, then never mind.
Derek's a big fan of my hair.
Oh,
so
there you go.
Yeah, there we go. Well, everybody, appreciate you as always. We'll be right back here next Sunday, win or lose, for another Marine Layer Podcast Sunday Night Live, 7 o'clock Pacific on both Instagram and on YouTube. Appreciate you guys all so much. Remember to go follow us on all of our social channels at Marine Layer Pod, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. We're on YouTube, Marine Layer Podcast. Look for the teal logo. Thanks so much, guys, and we'll see you next week.